Recently, the 4K ultra-high definition Blu-ray version of Lord of the Rings was released just in time for Christmas. Being a die-hard Lord of the Rings fan, I found a number of videos on social media, like YouTube, about the differences between this release and the original DVD. Those who were narrating these videos seemed to be very enthusiastic about the new release, in a way that reminded me of car salesmen hawking the latest and greatest improvement in their cars. So I bought the 4K Ultra High Definition Blu-ray edition and was delightfully impressed by what they had done to this film. I was also disappointed, if not actually shocked, by how some of the scenes had been changed for the worse. The social media postings really did not convey the increased resolution of the high definition to the DVD version. So what I did was play the 4K Ultra High Definition Blu-ray version on my 4K flat screen, then select a specific frame and a specific shot and a specific scene and pause the film. I then photographed the screen with my iPhone. Then I put in the DVD version and went to the same frame or as close as I could get to it and photographed that. Most of the photos were cropped, however, but this was done to remove glare from the screen and other extraneous artifacts like that annoying little white rectangle that indicates that the movie is paused. There was no post-processing, digital manipulation, or altering the photographs I took, as I wanted to present the most accurate representation of what you will actually see if you were watching the movie in the comfort of your own home. Okay, let's get started. This first frame is from the movie The Two Towers. Here we see Éowyn looking down from Edoras and watching the approach of Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas. Now you should pay a close attention to the orange-colored patterns on the arches and the wall above her. Make note of the wood and its patterns on the roof, and pay special attention to the stone foundation. Quite an amazing difference, isn't it? This is an excellent example of what high resolution can do. Now please excuse the white square glare that's off on the left side of the image. The orangish patterns have been resolved into this beautiful Celtic-like scroll work. Notice that the wood is a lot more detailed, and so is the stonework of the foundation. Also note how well you can see Éowyn, certainly a lot better than in the previous image. Note too that what's really happened is that the colors are a bit subdued and the resolution is enhanced. And here we have both images side by side, with the left side being the original DVD version and the right side being the 4K Ultra High Definition Blu-ray version. I think it's very important to notice the changes in the color hues. Also note to Éowyn's left, there seems to be a figure, quite unable to tell what it is on the DVD version, but a lot more distinct on the HD version. Now what we're going to do next is just take that section of the frame with Éowyn in it, and we're just going to magnify it without any further changes. So what we have here is just a magnification of my original photograph. We see Éowyn and the orangish patterns surrounding her and this vague figure off to the right. Now let's check out the 4K version. And here we have a simple magnification of the 4K version of the same frame. Note how much clearer Éowyn appears. Note that the figure next to her is one of the guards. And also look closely at the Celtic pattern. You can even see at this magnification the detail comes through as opposed to what you saw in the previous version. And we'll compare both of them side by side here. And here again are both images side by side. I don't think you really need me to explain what high resolution means. So this is probably one of the best examples in the film, and now we're going to look at another shot, another frame from The Return of the King, which, by the way, just happens to be one of my favorite moments. Ah yes, the mouth of Sauron. One of my favorite shots. In any event, this is the DVD version. Note the richness of the color, maybe the darkness of the red of the blood on his lips and teeth. Note the wound that runs vertically down his chin, and pay special attention to the runes that are inscribed on his helmet. Now let's look at the 4K Blu-ray version. And here we have the 4K Blu-ray version. Note that the blood on his teeth and lips is much more subdued, not as saturated as was in the DVD version. However, also note that the vertical wound on his chin is much more detailed, and especially note the runes on the helmet. They're much sharper and much more distinct. So what we seem to have done is changed a little of the color contrast for detail. And here are both images side by side, with the classic DVD image on the left and the new 4K Blu-ray image on the right. Notice the definite difference in the saturation of color and the definite difference in resolution of fine detail. Now this is the best of it. Now we're going to go on to further scenes. However, things are not going to improve. They're going to deteriorate somewhat. And here we have Rivendell, this image being taken from the very start of the second disc in The Fellowship of the Rings. Note the color richness and a little bit of the detail or edges around the gazebo and trees and maybe the roof. And here we have the 4K Blu-ray version. Notice that the colors are much more subdued or dark, and though the resolution improvement is there, it's not by much. It's almost as if they took the color and life out of the scene. So let's compare them both, which you will see in the next frame. The elven gazebo-like structures are a little sharper on the Blu-ray version, but note the marked difference in the coloring of the trees. They're darker, and the greens are far less saturated, not as if they were in light in the DVD version, but almost in darkness in the Blu-ray version. This is a trend that's going to continue as we go along with my video. One of the issues I had with the original DVD was that many things had a decided green cast, even though they were not green. Not the least of which was King Theoden of Rohan's beard and the elven cloaks. Now, I've never met King Theoden, so I really do not know if his beard was green or not, but I can definitely guarantee you that the elven cloaks were not green. Trust me on this. The elven cloak is green. The elven brooch is of course green. The problem is Frodo is green like some poor seasick soul. This image is from the toward the end of the Two Towers, where Frodo is in Osgiliath and sees the Nazgul. Now let's look at the Blu-ray version. And here is the 4K Ultra High Definition Blu-ray version. Well, they certainly got rid of that annoying green cast, and the elven cloak looks a lot more like its original color. Unfortunately, the elven brooch is not green in this image, where in reality it is actually quite green. And here are the two images side by side. In looking at this, the increase in resolution is minimal at best. All they've done really here is they wiped out the green that shouldn't be there, but they also wiped out the green that should be there. So whoever was responsible for re-rendering this image really fell down on the job, and that's unfortunate. In this scene, Faramir has just awoken Frodo because he wants to take him to the overlook to the Forbidden Pool and show him Gollum. Note that the blues and greens are very rich in this scene, which might be understandable for nighttime and moonlight. But let's see what happens in the 4K Blu-ray version. Now here in the 4K ultra high definition Blu-ray version, we see that the brilliant blues and greens have been much subdued, and overall it's a little bit darker, but it's also difficult to appreciate any increase in resolution, or for that matter, increase in ultra high definition. Here in the side-by-side comparison, you can see that the saturated blues and greens have been subdued into probably what are more realistic colors. However, the overall image is a little less contrasty and maybe arguably a little darker. Whatever resolution improvement there may be in the 4K version, it's rather hard to find. Pippin has looked into the Seeing Stone, and Legolas, who is outside in the moonlight, perceives that Sauron is here. Now take a close look at the quality of the blues and the grays and the moonlight reflecting off the shadows of the snow in the mountains. This is the DVD version. Let's go to the HD version. This image was so dark on the screen that I could not get rid of the glare that's in the background. That's the three-sided sort of vaguely brownish thing on Legolas's face. Here we notice that all the rich blues and greens are gone. It's pretty much one color palette. Also note the snow on the mountains is much more subdued. This was actually darker than what you see here, and it was shockingly dark. I was wondering how it ever got past the quality control people. At least I can say that the elven brooch is green on this shot. Okay, from the takeaway here, please note the difference in the snow on the mountain peaks in the background. In the old DVD version, it's quite bright. In the 4K resolution, it's really washed out and insignificant. Also note that there really isn't much detail in Legolas's face whatsoever, whereas in the old DVD version, there is, though there is improved resolution in the cloak on the 4K version. I was very unhappy with this and felt in some ways cheated. Whoever was responsible for this newer version screwed it up, but this isn't the worst. That's coming next. This is the scene wherein Elrond talks with Arwen about the hazards of marrying a mortal man and giving up her immortality. She is counseled that eventually Aragorn will die. It is probably, without a doubt, the most touching and emotional scene in the entire movie, at least for me. So here we have the first image from the DVD. Note the resolution in Aragorn's hair, and especially on the crown that he is wearing, and notice the richness of the color of the entire shot. And here is the 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray better than sliced bread version. This isn't the only scene in Lord of the Rings where they pulled off this crap. I am really unhappy about this. The color is almost washed away. This is a very low contrast color. There's no saturation, and there's no detail in this ultra high D Blu-ray version. Let's look at both images and compare them side by side. Yes, that really is the old classic DVD version on the left, And on the right, we have the better than sliced bread 4K Ultra high definition Blu-ray version. And you tell me, which one would you rather look at? Now pay attention to Aragorn's crown, or at least that band of metal he has around his forehead. On the DVD version, lots of detail with the markings. On the 4K version, very hard to make out, and it's not a function of the glare, which I have labeled. Also look at Aragorn's coat, especially going down the front of it. The DVD version, lots of detail. On the 4K version, it's washed out. This thing is colorless, drab, and awful. And this isn't the only scene in which this type of thing occurs. And because of things like this, it made it very difficult to like or even recommend the 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray version. I still bought it, of course. I'm still happy that I bought it, and I will probably watch the 4K version again, but it is not anywhere near what it could have been if somebody had done their job competently. What they did to parts of this film is a travesty, and I will not ever forgive whoever did this. Now, I must say that many of the scenes which are flashbacks of past events or portends of the future are often done in this washed out, colorless, detailless version. It may have been a management decision to do it this way. If it is, it's not up to that management to alter such a beautiful movie in this fashion. So there you have it, folks. If you like what you see, go ahead and buy the Blu-ray version. But it's hard to justify. I like it, but not all that much.